Hi, I'm Revathi. I'm working as Assistant Professor in SNS College of Engineering in Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. Today we are going to discuss the topic about types of schedule in DBMS. Schedule is, as the name suggests, it is a process of lining of transactions and executing them one by one. When there are multiple transactions that are running in concurrent manner, and the order of operation is needed to be set so that the operations do not overlap each other. Scheduling is brought into play and the transactions are timed accordingly. Schedule is divided into two. In DBMS, schedule is divided into two, that is serial schedule, non-serial schedule. Non-serial schedule is divided into two, that is serializable schedule, non-serializable schedule. Serializable schedule is divided into two, that is conflict serializable, view serializable. Non-serial schedule is divided into two, that is recoverable serial schedule, non-recoverable schedule. A recoverable schedule is divided into three, that is cascading schedule, cascadeless schedule, strict schedules. Serial schedule. Schedule in which the transactions are executed and non-interleaved. Serial schedule is one in which no transaction start until a running transaction has ended. Is called serial schedule. In serial schedule, a transaction is completely executed before starting the execution of another transaction. For example, consider the following schedule involving two transactions, that is T1 and T2. First, T1 transactions are completed, then only T2 transaction starts. Here, read in T at the time of T1 transaction, reading A account, then writing A account, again reading B account. After finishing this transaction, T1 transaction, then T2 transaction begins. Writing B account value, then reading A account value, then reading B account value. Where R of A denotes the read operation is performed on some data item A. This is serial schedule since the transaction performs serially in order T1, T2. Non-serial schedule. This type of scheduling where the operations of multiple transactions are interleaved. This might lead to a rise in concurrency problem. The transactions are executed in a non-serial manner, keeping the end result correct and same as serial schedule. Unlike the serial schedule where one transaction must wait for another to complete all the operations. In the non-serial schedule, the other transaction proceeds without waiting for the previous transactions to complete. This sort of schedule does not provide any benefit of the concurrent execution. It can be of two types, namely serializable and non-serializable schedule. Serializable. This is used to maintain the consistency of the database. It is mainly used in non-serial scheduling to verify whether the scheduling will lead to consistency or not. The non-serial schedule is said to be in a serializable schedule only when it is equivalent to serial schedule for an n number of transactions. Since concurrency is allowed in this case, thus multiple transactions can execute concurrently. There are two types, that is conflict serializable, view serializable. A schedule is called conflict serializable if it can be transformed into a serial schedule by swapping non-conflicting operations. Second one is view serializable. A schedule is called view serializable if it is view equal to a serial schedule. That means no overlapping transactions. A conflict schedule is a view serializable, but if the serializability contains blind race, then the view serializable does not conflict serializable. Conflict serializability. A schedule is conflict serializable if it is conflict equivalent to some serial schedule. What is meant by conflict equivalent? Two schedules are said to be conflict equivalent when one can be transformed to another by swapping non-conflicting operations. Conflict serializable. A schedule is called conflict serializable if it can be transformed into a serial schedule by swapping non-conflicting operations. Conflicting operations. Two operations are said to be conflicting if all the below conditions are satisfied. What are all they? They belong to different transactions. The operations on same data item. At least one of them is a right operation. Check whether the given schedule is conflict serializable or not. A schedule contains R1 of A, R2 of A, R1 of B, R2 of B, R3 of B, W1 of A, W2 of B. We have to write it in a table form. R1 of A. First, T1 first reads A, then the control is transferred to T2, then it reads A again, then the control is transferred to T1, reading B, then the control is transferred to T2, then reading B, again the control is transferred to T3, reading B, again the control is transferred to T1, writing operations performed, the control is transferred to T1 to T2. Now writing operations performed for B. Here list all the conflicting operations and determine the dependency between the transactions. Determine the dependency between the transactions. R2 of A, W1 of A, T2 to T1, T2 to T1, R1 of B, W2 of B, R3 of B, W2 of B. So T3 to T2. Based on this, you have to draw the graph, precedence graph. In this precedence graph, we find T2, T1 to T2, T2 to T1. Draw an arrow for that because we already find out the dependencies between the transactions. Again, T3 to T2 you have to draw. So, three dependency transactions. Clearly, there exists a cycle in the precedence graph because T1 to T2, then T2 to T1. Therefore, the given schedule S is not conflict serializable. Remaining things we will see in next class. Thank you.